Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 315. Today we're continuing our conversation from the last couple of weeks all about motivation and getting our neurodivergent kids, our homeschooled neurodivergent kids in particular, to be more go-getters when it comes to their own learning, or at least more motivated and less challenging when it comes to getting them to do things that they don't necessarily want to do. Today specifically, we're talking about beating boredom without busy work. So we are going to tackle the idea of novelty, choice, and challenge for our neurodivergent kids. Before we begin, though, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsors for this episode, CTC Math. They are fabulous in their support of education, homeschooling in particular, and they are just a great resource. If you're looking for a fantastic math program for your kids, check them out. You'll learn a little bit more about them later on in this episode. All right, let's pop those earbuds in, go for a walk, hide from the kids in the pantry with some chocolate or whatever it takes to get the podcasts you want listened to, and let's get on with today's episode. Hey there, welcome back. I'm so glad that you are here and continuing this conversation with me. Today we're tackling something that comes up with homeschooling families constantly, especially when we're parenting gifted, twice exceptional, otherwise neurodivergent kids. Maybe they have ADHD, autism, or they have a learning challenge of some kind. Whatever it is, we hear from them all the time. I'm bored. I don't know what to do. And sometimes boredom can be wonderful. Sometimes boredom creates contentment or creativity. However, for some of our neurodivergent kids, particularly some of our gifted and profoundly gifted kids, boredom can mean all sorts of things and not really all that great. I was just having a conversation recently with a parent from the Learners Lab, and we were talking about that idea that so many times when we can't figure out what to do to keep our kids occupied, well-meaning relatives or friends or other homeschoolers will tell us, just let them be bored. Boredom creates all sorts of really cool things. When I let my kids be bored, they play games, or they go for a walk, or they invent something, or they create a play or something like that. However, as we know, when we're raising neurodivergent kids, they are just as different from one another as they are from neurotypical brains. And sometimes those brains, if we allow them to be bored, can actually become destructive. Sometimes a bored brain with a neurodivergent kid could mean that they're being under-challenged. It could mean that they're overstimulated. It could mean that they're disconnected. It could mean that they're mentally underfed or emotionally dysregulated, or they're stuck in a learning environment or a situation that just doesn't fit them. As homeschooled parents, we can sometimes panic when boredom shows up. We might think, I am not doing enough, or I need a better curriculum, or maybe I should add more structure. Maybe I should reduce some of the structure. Maybe we need more activities. And before we know it, we have built a homeschool that is full of busy work, maybe endless printables or overpacked schedules, and exhausted kids who are still saying they're bored. So today we're going to talk about how to beat boredom without filling every minute or assigning meaningless tasks. We're going to talk about the need for novelty. We're going to talk about the need for autonomy. We're going to talk about challenge, nervous systems and how they need to be regulated, and how to use challenges within our homeschool to create learning that actually engages neurodivergent kids. Before we begin, though, I really do want to address that conversation that I had with a parent recently about neurodivergent kids and particularly profoundly gifted kids being bored, and sometimes that causing complete and total destruction. If you as a parent know in your gut that letting your kids be bored is not the right thing for them, you need to trust your gut. Our gifted kids are different from one another and from a neurotypical population, and that means they need an atypical approach to their education and their parenting. I have 4 children. All of my children fit somewhere along the neurodivergent spectrum, whether that is anxiety, giftedness, twice exceptionalities, OCD, ADHD, and all sorts of other learning challenges and just challenges in general. There are at least one, probably two among those four that, especially when they were younger, if I had said, just be bored, or thought, just let them be bored, they'll come up with something creative to do, I would have ended up with my house in shambles around me. Boredom equaled destruction or finding their own interesting ways to seek novelty, and didn't always work out in the way that we wanted to, or we wanted it to. It didn't create these beautiful sculptures or Lego creations or robotics or whatever. Instead, it was taking things apart or wreaking havoc with a younger sibling or all sorts of other things. And so you really need to know your kids to know what they need when they're saying they're bored. Are they bored because they have nothing to do? Are they bored because they're not getting enough novelty or enough interest to engage their brain? Are they being under-challenged? Are they being over-challenged, overstimulated, understimulated? What is going on? We want to get to the root problem and the root cause of our individual kids' boredom before we figure out exactly what to throw at them. So one of the biggest mindset shifts that we need to make as a parent is to realize that boredom is information. It's not failure, it's not laziness, and it's not proof that your child needs constant entertainment. It's information, especially when we're raising neurodivergent kids. Because many neurodivergent brains crave different things. They crave novelty, they crave intensity, they crave meaning, they crave autonomy, they crave movement, creativity, challenge, or emotional connection. So boredom is information to let us know we need to investigate what they are craving so we can help them meet those needs. As parents, one of our primary goals is to meet the needs of our kids in front of us. As homeschooling parents, that's literally what we're meant to do. We're meant to meet their various needs where they are and move them forward or engage them throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year, and keep them moving forward. When those things that their brains are craving are missing, their brain checks out. What looks like boredom for neurodivergent kids could actually be understimulation. It could be executive dysfunction. It could be perfectionism. It could be anxiety. It could be demand avoidance or a lack of meaningful engagement. This is especially true of our gifted and twice exceptional kids. A child can be intellectually advanced, deeply curious, incredibly creative, and still completely disengage if the work feels repetitive or disconnected. And honestly, a lot of traditional curriculum is built around repetition and compliance. And for a neurodivergent kid, that just immediately shuts them down. For a gifted kid who wants to know why they're learning something and what the point of it is in order to get them meaningfully engaged, having them repeat something that they've already mastered or having them do something just for the sake of compliance is the easiest way to shut them down. If you've got a kiddo who has ADHD, this is another one that often is shut down by just having them need to be compliant. I was just having a conversation with one of my kids the other day about their own ADHD, and they were saying, I know you're stressed, Mom, but you're back to telling me all of the things you want me to do again and reminding me. And it gets to a point where if I was just about to do something or I was thinking about working it into my schedule or figuring out when I wanted to make it happen, and you come in and remind me to do it again, my brain just immediately says, forget you, I'm not going to do it now. And that is a very common challenge that parents have with kids who have ADHD. And we have to be really careful about the type of curriculum that we're using so that our kids aren't overly dealing with repetitive information or things that just want them to be compliant. When those curriculums are overly repetitive or built around compliance, it means for neurodivergent kids that they're experiencing too little novelty too little ownership with what they're being asked to do, and too little challenge. And we want to make sure that we're not giving our kids busy work or more of the same. We're giving them something that's actually going to challenge their brain in a meaningful way. When kids say they're bored, it's a natural response for us as adults to give them more things to do, maybe give them more worksheets or more assignments or a cool printable fun activity or chores or whatever. It might be natural for us to find a new educational app or documentary we want them to watch, something to engage their brain or make them learn. It might mean that we're scheduling them with more things to do or trying to add in new activities. It might be that we're giving them more productive activities or we're deciding what the productivity requires. But busy work typically backfires, especially with neurodivergent kids, especially with gifted and twice exceptional kids. Why? Because neurodivergent kids are extremely sensitive to meaningless work, to unnecessary repetition, to a lack of autonomy, and to tasks that feel disconnected from real purpose. And honestly, they're not wrong. Many kids would rather deeply explore one meaningful project than complete 20 disconnected tasks. Busy work creates resentment. It creates emotional fatigue. It creates shutdown and fake productivity. It fills time without creating engagement and meaning, and parents often mistake quiet compliance for meaningful learning. This was something that I did often to derail my own homeschooling when my kids were young. I am a former teacher, and I would often, when I was newer to homeschooling, fall back on what I knew about teaching to help guide my day-to-day homeschooling. That would be adding in things like answering comprehension questions, taking a quiz, telling me what they learned, regurgitating information. And all it did was shut my kids down because I was trying to get them to prove their knowledge instead of having meaningful conversations with them. When I shifted to having conversations with them about the things that they were learning, we had, number one, better conversations and a better relationship. But number two, the content stuck, the learning stuck. They remembered things more because it was more meaningful for them. I want to focus on three specific things throughout the rest of this episode: novelty, choice, and challenge. So number one, novelty; number two, choice; and number three, challenge. These are the three biggest engagement drivers for a lot of our neurodivergent learners. So let's start with number one, novelty. Novelty wakes up the brain. It doesn't mean you need elaborate lessons that you pulled off of Pinterest. It doesn't mean that your homeschool room needs to be social media ready. It doesn't mean that you need all the bells and whistles. It doesn't mean that you need expensive materials or constant entertainment. Novelty can be tiny. You could write with gel pens, change locations. You could turn work into a challenge. You could add movement. You could use a whiteboard. You could use timing for a speed round of rapid fire answers to questions. Reading under a blanket fort. Sometimes the brain just needs a chance to think this feels different so that it can engage and click in. This is especially true of ADHD brains. One of the most effective strategies that I stumbled upon, and it was literally stumbling upon it. It was out of desperation when my oldest child was just refusing to do any of the work he needed to get done that day. I've talked about this on this podcast before, but if you're new, this will be new for you. Out of sheer desperation, one day I took his math worksheet and I cut it up into 7 pieces. And I didn't get rid of any of the pieces. I didn't cross out any of the problems. It was the same amount of content, but I took those 7 little pieces and I taped them to pieces of furniture or walls or stairs or doorknobs around the house. And I came back to him and I said, okay, I cut your math up into 7 pieces. There are 7 pieces scattered around this house. You need to find them. When you find them, you need to answer the questions that are on the page and then bring me back all 7 pieces when you're done. That was completely and totally novel to him. It was like a hide and seek game for his math. There was movement involved in it. He had to move around. He had to change locations constantly because I had things scattered all over the house. It was not any fewer math problems. It was not a different assignment. It was just changing things up. It made a huge difference, and that one single strategy worked for a really long time. We cut the math apart. Sometimes if I felt he needed a lot of movement that day, I'd cut it into a lot of little pieces. Sometimes if we just needed to get through it, it'd just be 2 or 3 pieces and it'd be easy to find. But sometimes that's all your kid needs to get re-engaged. Okay, so let's talk about math. Specifically, let's talk about finding a program that actually works for your unique homeschoolers. In our house, we've been using CTC Math for years, and even though I am so appreciative that they sponsor this podcast, I am a paying customer. I'm still a paying customer even with their sponsorship because it's just that good, and I love supporting great companies with great programs. With 2 kids still at home, both with very different learning needs, CTC Math has been the flexible and dependable solution that I keep coming back to. One of my kiddos needs more time to process math concepts, and I love that she can move through the lessons at her own pace without feeling rushed or behind. My other kiddo, he flies. He jumps straight to the end of unit tests to see what he already knows, and then we only focus on the lessons that fill the gaps. That kind of customization is gold when you're homeschooling gifted or twice exceptional kids. CTC Math gives you the access to every grade level, from kindergarten through 12th grade with your subscription, so that your child can accelerate, review, or jump around based on their own needs, not based on some rigid curriculum structure. And because it's video-based with clear instruction and auto-graded lessons and quizzes, it frees me up to support my kids without being chained to a textbook, teacher's manual, or whiteboard. So whether your child needs more time or is racing ahead, you can tailor it all with CTC Math. Check it out at ctcmath.com. You will see why so many homeschool families trust it. And if you've got quirky math learners like I do, I think you're going to love it. If you have any questions about CTC, like I said, we've been using it for years in our homeschool, and I encourage you to reach out and ask me any questions that you have. If you do pop over there, let them know that I sent you, and let them know that you appreciate their ongoing support of homeschoolers everywhere, especially those of you here at Raising Lifelong Learners. All right, let's get back to today's episode. Okay. Welcome back. Number 2, so we talked about novelty. The number 2 big idea I want you to take away from this episode, and what will help you beat the boredom without busy work, is choice. Autonomy changes everything. When a kid feels like they have a say in what they're doing, they tend to do more for that particular task. The thing is, most of our kids have little say in anything that happens in their day-to-day world. They are young. They can't get to the places that they want to go by themselves. They can't see whomever they want whenever they want to see them. They have to do what you tell them to. Basically, they don't have a lot of control over the day-to-day workings of their life. So giving them some choice and autonomy when it comes to their learning can re-engage them and encourage them to be more excited about what it is they're learning. Many neurodivergent kids engage better when they have ownership, input, and flexibility when it comes to their own learning. Choice lowers the nervous system threat. So you get, instead of do this, you get, would you rather do this or this right now? Here are some examples of that. Instead of do this worksheet, you could try, would you rather write on the paper or dictate your answers to me? Would you like to do your math first or your reading first? Would you like to work on the table or on the couch? Would you rather do 3 problems to show that you know how to master this topic, or would you rather do the odds only on the page? Tiny choices matter, and they give them ownership, and some of our kids are just desperately seeking that ownership. Okay, number 3, challenge. This is where many gifted and twice exceptional kiddos struggle. Sometimes kids look bored because the work is too easy. And even if they're not doing it to show you that it's super easy, it could still be too easy and they're just not engaged anymore. Instead of saying, this is beneath me, or I already know how to do this, they'll avoid, rush, act silly, behave poorly, or completely disengage. Their brain needs an appropriate level of challenge. If it's too easy, the brain wanders. If it's too hard, the nervous system panics. The sweet spot is hard enough to feel interesting, but doable enough to feel safe. So we need to figure out a way to get to that sweet spot with our kids so that their challenge is dialed in to the right level. So let's talk about dialing that in. This is a framework that I want you to take away from this episode today. I want you to imagine engagement like a dial. If the dial is set too low, our kids experience boredom or distraction, or they start to zone out. If it's set too high, they're overwhelmed, they shut down, or we get some refusal. Our goal is to help our kids find just right challenge. It's like Goldilocks, right? Except we're dialing it in. And the beautiful thing about homeschooling is we can adjust that dial as we need to for each of our individual kids. Some of the ways that we can turn the dial up when our kids are specifically understimulated, and that's what's leading to them saying, I'm bored, or acting like something's going on. We could dial it up by adding complexity, by shortening repetition, by increasing creativity, by adding real-world application, by using open-ended questions, introducing novelty, or allowing deeper exploration. Some examples of this, you could ask them to redesign something or question them what would happen if, and give them new scenarios to try. Or, can you teach this to me? I don't really understand it. I want to see how you teach it to me to see if I can get there with you. Some ways to turn the dial down if it's too much when our kids are overwhelmed. We could reduce the quantity, give them fewer to do so that they just have to demonstrate mastery. We could break it into chunks, take some breaks, or physically break it into chunks and hide the chunks around the house so they have to find it, like I mentioned earlier. We could add visual supports in, a checklist, a timer, stuff like that. We could do it together. You could body double with them. We talked about this in a previous episode when we talked about ADHD. You could simplify the instructions, help them break those instructions down so they understand them a little bit better. Remove the time pressure. Let them just get it done when they get it done and come back to it when they need to. Some examples of dialing down a little bit are asking them, some examples of turning that dial down is to say, let's just start and see where it takes us. Or give me a postcard, not a whole paper, just a small snippet to tell me that you really understand what's going on. You don't have to write a whole paper about it or a whole dissertation. Or you can say, I'll do the first one and then you do the second one and then we'll go from there. So let's talk about some examples of how we can dial it up or dial it down. Picture your kid who's just really struggling with the act of writing. They hate writing. They don't like to do it. It's a struggle for them. Instead of asking them to write a paragraph, you could try a comic strip or having them caption images or dictate to you and you be their scribe or write something on the whiteboard. Sometimes just that change of material helps. Or you could do collaborative writing where they write a sentence and you write a sentence. The goal is communication, not suffering. So we want to ease our kids into the writing. Remember that writing is different from handwriting, and we want our kids to be good idea generators and communicators, and that's what writing is all about. Handwriting is the physical act. And yes, our kids need to be able to write by hand, but our kids need to be good communicators of ideas, even more importantly than writing things down by hand. So we can trade this off and make it simpler if in different ways. How about the kiddo who's just racing through their math? This often means that they're under-challenged. Instead of adding more problems, you could try adding puzzles, logic challenges, real-world math, or strategy games. Recently, we were doing a group coaching call inside the Learners Lab, and the question came up. There is a parent in there who has a profoundly gifted child who is literally flying through curriculum. And one of the people that they consulted with when they were trying to figure out what her and her husband were trying to figure out what to do next year for their student in math, because this child is very young and has reached some very high levels of math, and they don't feel that this child is ready to be accelerated into college classes. And so we were talking about it and brainstorming, and one of the things that we came up with was there are lots of ways to deepen learning rather than continue on in a linear fashion from one topic to the next. I just want to remind you all that there is no one right way to educate a child, whether they are gifted, twice exceptional, or whatever. Some kids need more support. Some kids need rapid acceleration. Some kids who are capable of rapid acceleration just need more time being kids. And you know your child best, so trust your gut. If your gut is saying that this kiddo who is fully capable of rapid acceleration is not ready socially and emotionally, then listen to your gut and go deeper. If your gut is saying this kiddo is ready to take college classes at 9 years old, then trust your gut and let your child do what they need to do. And then likewise, if your child needs more support, then there is no such thing as behind. Give them the support that they need. You have the ability to do this as homeschoolers. It is the beauty and I think the greatest gift when it comes to homeschooling neurodivergent kids is that we get to make that decision and help our kids meet their own needs and become the best versions of themselves. Okay, so how about that kiddo who is the nothing sounds fun kid? Sometimes boredom is actually just burnout. It's overwhelm. It's nervous system shutdown. These kids just often need something different. They might need rest. They might need just a change of pace. They might need connection. They might need reduced demands. They might need just a break from tasks so that they can just be. Sometimes we all need that break, and that's okay. So if your kiddo just needs rest, let them rest. And then assess and reassess. You know your child, so you know if they're really bored or if they just need rest. This is important. Not every moment of every day for our children needs optimization. Sometimes kids need daydreaming. Sometimes they need wandering. Sometimes they need decompression. Sometimes they need to stare out a window or build imaginary worlds. Creative thought often grows in quiet spaces. But again, you have to know your child. While we don't want to eliminate boredom completely, we do want to eliminate chronic disengagement. So we want to make sure we're balancing the needs of our child. If we have a child who doesn't do well with boredom, they need their brains to be stimulated all the time, then we need to have a lot of different things to pull from to keep our kids' brains engaged. If we have a kiddo that does sometimes need to just be left alone and walk away, we need to allow them time to decompress and daydream and build imaginary worlds, and then make sure that we're re-engaging them so that they're not chronically disengaging. Let's talk about just a real quick, simple reset framework that we can use with our kids. When learning feels flat, we need to first ask ourselves, do we need more novelty? Do we need more choice? Do we need more challenges? Do we need more support, or do we need more rest? These questions change everything. As you're asking those questions, you give yourself the opportunity to determine what your child needs and take that into account. If it's novelty, you're going to give them novelty. If it's disengagement, give them a chance to decompress. If it's movement, you can add that in. Remember that if your child is bored, it doesn't automatically mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you're a lazy homeschool parent. It doesn't mean you need a brand new curriculum. It just simply means that the learning environment needs adjustment. We need to figure out what the root cause is and how to fix it. That's one of the biggest gifts of homeschooling. We can pivot, we can experiment, we can build learning around real engagement instead of compliance. And honestly, that's where the magic happens. If you want more support in creating engaging and neurodivergent friendly learning rhythms, come join us inside the Learners Lab. You can ask questions 24/7 in our forum. There's always somebody that's available to jump in and give you suggestions. Sometimes during the year, we're a little quieter. Sometimes we're a little bit noisier. But there's always someone in there willing to engage. And if you can't get anyone to answer any questions or help you brainstorm, I'm just a DM away inside there. And I can help you build a learning rhythm for your kids. The bottom line is you don't have to do this alone. There are others homeschooling neurodivergent kids just like you, and we're here to support one another. So check us out at the Learners Lab, raisinglifelonglearners.com/lab. Make sure that you check out our sponsor, CTC Math, over at ctcmath.com, or you can go over to the show notes for this page at raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast and click on the link to CTC from there, because they've offered our listeners a really great discount, and you can get that through the link on the website. because it automatically takes you to the discount page. If you need help finding the link, you can always reach out to me on social media or via email and I can help you out. We're going to be back same time, same place next week with another great episode, and I look forward to seeing you there. If you know anybody who could benefit from this episode, make sure that you forward it on to them and invite them to subscribe. I'd love to have them. And again, I'd love to have you over in the Learners Lab. Have a great week. Love on your kids. I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.